Welcome back to the 40% Better podcast. As always, I'm your host, Bill. And today, Jonathan has graciously accepted our invitation to come and talk to us about all things related to leadership. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bill. There's nowhere else I'd rather be than talking right now with you. So I'm pretty happy to be
Awesome.
here.
Oh my God, I love that. Woohoo! I feel good. So the one question that I ask everybody is just kind of like my single scripted question, is how did you get started doing leadership at all?
Yeah, I was very much an accidental entrepreneur, Bill. Growing up, both my parents were professionals. 100% of their friends were professionals. I didn't even know any other business people. But in college, started out studying engineering, wound up getting degrees in economics and Chinese. And the week that I graduated college, I was on a plane with a one-way ticket to China. And I spent the next year and a half there. And I was expecting to have an adventure, and I did. And I was expecting to perfect my Chinese. That happened too. I was not expecting that 3 weeks in, I'd meet the woman I'd be married to for 29 years, but that's what happened. And we were used to spending all of our time together, 23 and a half plus hours a day. And when I came back to Chicago, when she came to the US for the first time, we wanted to be able to keep doing that. We wanted to be able to go back and forth to China, see family and friends. But it just seemed like it'd be hard to do that with a 9 to 5 job and 2 weeks of vacation a year. So we decided to become entrepreneurs. And like I said, I had no background in leadership. I had no background in entrepreneurship. Nobody taught me this stuff, but I'm a learner. I've read over 3,000 books. I would talk to anybody who'd be willing to share their experience with me. And the company took off. And a couple years later, joined an organization called EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization. It was YEO back then. We're not so young anymore. But what a gift. EO just taught me everything I know about business and entrepreneurship and management. Just totally changed the course of my life.
Oh, awesome. I've never heard of you.
Yeah, it's
I've
phenomenal.
lived under a rock, I guess. Yeah.
There's I think about 18,000 of us around the world, probably about 2/3 in North America. But this, this is the plug for EO, but really for anyone who runs a business and feels like you just wish you had people who could share their experience and that you didn't have to do it all alone. EO is tremendous education, but even more important than education, they put you in forum groups of non-competing businesses. And I've been in the same EO forum group for 26 years, and we know everything about each other. We've had
Wow.
births and deaths and bankruptcies and tremendous successes selling our businesses and marriages and divorces. Um, just can't imagine my life without those guys. These are the guys that you could call at 3 in the morning, ask them to bring a shovel, and they come, no questions asked. Just totally changed my life.
I like that. With all the industrialization, you need somebody who's got a backhoe. You need to level it up, but bigger than a shovel nowadays. Yeah. Um, that's interesting. Okay. Is EO like more Midwestern? Because yeah, I'm
No,
just
they're everywhere. There's 60 chapters just in the US and probably
okay.
about 300 chapters worldwide.
Okay. Very cool. Awesome. That first business that you started, what were you guys doing?
Yeah, so it's called Kidorable. And if you've ever seen umbrellas, rain boots that look like frogs and ladybugs and stuff like that, that was us. My wife was the creative genius behind the company. She designed all of our products. She was in charge of product development and production. I was in charge of operations and sales and marketing. And we're great. We were a great partnership. Everything I was like not very good at, that was her strengths, and everything that she wasn't very good at, that was mine. And what a gift when you could work with
Yeah.
someone who smooths out your rough edges, especially if it's someone you love.
Yeah. No, that's an awesome story. Do you have you read Alex Hormozy?
I don't think so. Tell me about it.
Oh my God. So Alex Hormozy, and his wife Layla, first of all, he talks about how she has smooths out his rough edges, right? She
Yeah.
has this skill stack that he doesn't have. Um, he's, for my money, he's the best explainer of sales and marketing
Mm,
who's creating content today.
yeah.
He's a practitioner. Like
Yeah.
he's like in volume. And he talked, he doesn't talk hypotheticals or any theoretical or anything. This is all the stuff that I've done.
Yeah.
This is the results. Here's all the receipts. Here's all the mistakes I made.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, but yeah, he talks about how I think I just saw a post. He said the most he'd made in a year was I think 3 million,
Hmm.
and then he met his wife at and they started working together almost immediately. And
Yeah.
he said the next year he made 17.
Yeah, it's a real gift when you find the right partner. I'll tell you another story about that. So, my wife and partner in the business, she had a rare combination of artistic talent and also just a really solid business sense. And so much of our work was with Chinese factories, and it was not good for quality of life because she would be up all night. When we were, when it was time for most people in North America to sleep, that's when they were working. That's when she had to be on with them. And for a good decade, we tried to find someone to replace her on the ground in China who could go to the factories, who could look at a production run, notice that the color was off or there was something wrong, and then would have the skill, the chutzpah to talk to the factory manager and say, "This isn't working. You need to throw that out and start over again." And for 10 years, we couldn't find someone because she just had this rare combination of talents. Um, in the end, we wound up hiring two people. We hired a designer with no business sense whatsoever, and an entry level designer at that. She was very reasonably priced, but we just needed someone with a decent eye. And then separately, we hired a business manager, and together they would go to the factory. And the junior level designer would notice that something was off. She would whisper in the ear of the business person, and then the business person would talk to the factory manager. Um,
Oh, perfect.
Almost nobody's great at everything.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we limit ourselves. We design ourselves to be the bottlenecks in our business when we try to do it all.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of building good teams, and it's always, figuring out all the different pieces that need to go together to make that team effective.
Yeah,
And you don't want a team of clones
yeah,
because you need that mix, of talent
absolutely.
and of perspective also. To be able to look at something and go, "Oh, wait a minute, this is off." It's an interesting journey to be doing that. Um, are you still doing that?
So I left that business 6 years ago to become a full-time coach. That's another origin story.
Ah,
It
okay.
was it was a Friday afternoon like any other. It was a single day. It's January 31st, 2020, right before anyone heard what COVID was. And I took a walk from my home near Lake Michigan up to the lake just to process the week, clear my head. Week like any other walk I had taken hundreds of times. But this day, as soon as the water came into view, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. It was like I was riding an avalanche. And I just realized in an instant, I can't keep devoting my work energy to something that doesn't light me up. That I was born to be a coach, that I'd love to learn. I'm great at teaching. The world needs people with clarity on, who they are and where they're going, how to get there. So I took my 2-hour walk, came back, talked to my wife and partner about me exiting the business. She had been on her own journey wanting to take more operational control, so that worked out well. And
Oh,
the best decision I ever made in my life.
that's awesome. And especially that she supported you like that and was like happy and yeah.
Could have gone both ways,
Yeah, well,
but
yeah, yeah, like yeah.
in the event it worked out
Everything
well.
has that, two paths diverge in the wood and you took whichever one it was, right? Um,
Yeah.
that's so cool. That's fascinating. So when you think about coaching, especially in the leadership realm, um, do you have a framework? Like, how do you approach that?
How to teach people how to be better leaders?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, one of my favorite clients, he was a tech, star, high performer, and he was promoted in his company to become CTO. And as great as he was at tech, he just didn't know anything about management. He never, never done it before. Super smart guy. And his CEO hired me to coach him for exactly this. And there's a few parts to teaching leadership. The first is that it's all about culture. Um, Nobody needs a manager to tell them whether it's better to make $1,000 or $1,000,000. No one needs a coach to say, should I get a hug or should I burn my fingers? Like every employee with a decent head on their shoulders knows how to make these decisions. But all the decisions that matter, they're a question of values. They're a question of purpose. And if you want people to make the same decisions that you are, whether it's a frontline customer service person, whether it's a high level, tech person or in accounting or, whatever department it is, they need to know what the company's core values are. So one of the places we started is what is a company's values? What is a company's purpose? Now, interestingly enough, the company did not have these written down. This was
Ah,
not a company-wide initiative. So as the CTO, he just started in the IT department and he just said he later convinced the whole company to do this and led it. I'm really proud of him. Um, but he just started within the company. I'm sorry, within his department. What are our department core values? And I'll just give you, one example. When I was running my old company, Cadorable, I started this in our office. Our office, our office customer service admin, we'd really talented people, but they were afraid to make decisions and they hated being held accountable. They wanted other people to do it for them. So we did two things really early on. I led them in a company core values exercise. And if we have time for that, I could, share how to do that yourself. Um, but when we said the words, it was stuff like, they're like knowledgeable. Like we know everything about our jobs. And the key to doing a core values rollout is having the employees come up with the words. But having, that's between you and me and everybody who's listening, having someone come up with a company or department core value of we just know everything about our jobs, it's not very useful because, like, well, what if you don't know a lot about your jobs and how's that actionable? Great core values are actionable. So they wrote the core values. I wrote the guiding principle statements. Knowledgeable. We know everything about our jobs. And when we don't, we ask questions to get the answer. And that was the question that changed the culture of the department. Now it's not just that we're all know-it-alls, because of course, with a fixed mindset, you can't grow. But each individual is responsible for actually finding out their own answers, not just waiting for management to spoon feed it to them. After core values, the next biggest tool of leadership, and this is for accountability and just making sure that things get done, is meeting structure. It's really awkward. It's really difficult to say, hey, Bill, we really need to talk about that thing. But if you know that we're having a meeting next Tuesday, then we could just wait until next Tuesday and say, hey, Bill, how's that thing going? And then it's totally natural. And that's just the meeting structure takes the heavy lifting of accountability off of your shoulders and onto it. And we had quarterly reviews. I'm sorry, not well, we had quarterly reviews too, but we had quarterly strategic planning meetings every quarter for over a decade. And we start by doing an assessment of our values. Like, are we living in full alignment with our values? And we at Cadorable, our three top values were a safe, supportive, positive environment, having the courage to do what's right for ourselves and our customers, and believing in the greatness of Cadorable. Every problem could be solved. And after we had just done a very congratulatory round of saying, how great we were and, being in full alignment with our values, our office manager raised her hand and she said that frontline staff are afraid to make decisions, even when they know exactly what to do if it's outside of our SOPs. We had SOPs for everything. My friends tease me that SOPs are my love language. Um, and that violated every single one of our core values.
right.
So immediately, right on the spot, we made a quarterly goal that for the next month, frontline staff was not allowed to ask management for guidance. Um, all they were allowed to do was like make a decision, do what they thought was best, and bring it up at the next week's meeting. And then it would either be celebrated or it would be an opportunity for learning. That quarterly goal transformed the culture of our company. into, it just changed our frontline staff from people who were confident, competent, just knew everything that they knew how to do, and that it was enough that with the guidance of our core values and the meeting rhythm, that they were able to do anything they needed for a customer right on the spot instead of having to ask a manager and waste everybody's time and all that stuff.
I like that. Yeah, that's good. Um, I'm totally used to the technology software world,
Yeah.
and um, I've been running agile's a software development, it's a project management structure.
Yeah.
But one of the things I love about agile is the daily check-in. How's everybody doing?
Hmm.
What are we working on? Um, it's 10 to 15 minutes first thing in the morning,
Yeah.
first thing to, very flexible. Uh, I think at the last company I was at, we did it at like 10 o'clock, because
Hmm.
that way all the parents could get their kids to school and
Yeah.
then get back to home or office or whatever. Um, that was our check, like I got to find out what everybody was doing
Yeah.
and where their friction was and what needed to be adjusted.
Yeah.
And, and I think in the software engineering world, people assume pretty high degree of autonomy. At least that was always my default. And definitely I guess, God, I'm doing this so long. I think part of the reason is because first 3 companies I worked at were startups, and nobody like, I think the answer early on was always, when I had a question for management, they were like, "Make your best decision and we'll run with it." You
Yeah.
know? I'd be like, "Really? Okay." Um, but it worked, like, after you hear that, whatever, 2, 3, 10 times in a row, you're like, "Okay, I know what the boss is gonna say. I'm just gonna go do
Yeah.
it," and, and away you go. Yeah.
Autonomy is a wonderful quality in an employee. Um, but as a manager, as a leader, do you want your staff just rowing in whatever direction they think is best, or do you want everyone rowing in the same direction? And that's where meeting structure, meeting rhythm comes into play. I mentioned these quarterly strategic planning meetings. At the end of the quarterly strategic planning meeting, we leave with unanimity on what are the top 5 company goals for the quarter. And then for each individual, what are their top 5 individual quarterly goals? To the extent that it relates to the company goal, that has to be one of them. But,
Right,
if
right.
it's, if you're in finance and this is a tech question, then, that maybe that doesn't have a lot to do with you. So within your personal area of expertise, like what are you could round out your top 5 goals with what is most important for you individually or for your department. And then every week have a meeting, a management accountability meeting that just says, what did I say I was going to do last week? What did I actually do last week?
Mhm.
Where am I going to be next week? And am I on track? What do I need to do to stay on track? Or what do I need to do to get back on track with measurable, milestones throughout the quarter? It's the most powerful tool there is to keep everybody accountable, rowing in the same direction so that they actually accomplish what they said. And if you're midway through the quarter and they're not on track, well, let's have that hard conversation about what do you need to get on track? Where are you stuck? Where do you need more resources? Let's brainstorm a solution. And then there's lots of words for it, but what you described, the daily huddle, we would have a standing meeting, literally standing, because you don't want everyone to get too
Right,
comfortable.
right.
This is a fast meeting.
Yeah,
Ours were usually 5 minutes. And it's the same agenda. Like, what did you say we're going to do yesterday? What are you going to do today? And what are you expecting for the next week? And if
yeah,
it can be something as simple as, oh yeah, I'm going to be out of town, next Friday. Okay, great. Like, is there anything we need to do to prepare for you to be out of town so that the company doesn't screech to a halt in your absence?
yeah.
Um, I'll share my favorite thing to do though during those weekly meetings. I would start every meeting. A great meeting starts on time, ends on time, has an agenda, and the first 2 items on every meeting agenda for the weeklies was first share a success story and at the time I was doing these, I was not quick to praise people. You know, we're talking right now, and Bill, like, if you have a mustard stain on your shirt, I'm not going to tell you, great job keeping 99% of your shirt clean. I'm going to say, Bill, let's talk about that mustard stain, which can be very demoralizing for employees. You know, that they work on something really hard, and you're like, oh, that was great, Bill. Let's talk about that mustard stain.
Right, right.
So by having in the agenda a chance for them to share what they were, something they're proud of, for me to acknowledge it, say, oh, that's awesome. And then to say, whoa, wait, Bill, you did that thing. Hey, the rest of you guys, are you doing that thing too? Because that was pretty awesome. And that's how you spread best practices. And then the next question, tell me about your frustrations. What do you wish would have turned out differently this last week? And frustrations come in three flavors. Some are just venting. You know, you wanted to have a picnic, but it was raining. All right, not a lot to do about that. But I'd rather have them complaining inside the meeting than outside the meeting and ruining our culture. The second type of frustration is they just don't know how to do something. They spent 3 hours doing something that should have taken them 10 minutes. Let's teach them how to, let's tell them where the password is, or, teach them what the
Right,
procedure
right.
is. But my favorite kind of frustration was when there was some sort of structural friction. And I said, let me think about that. And I come back next week with a new procedure that just sidestepped that friction. And we came up with 30 of these every single year. And it would save people 5 to 10 hours a week of productive time. And the
Mhm.
5 to 10 hours a week that we would be eliminating was always the most frustrating, least productive part of their weeks. We were able to do this over and over and over and over again just by listening. Your
Nice.
staff will tell you what they need. Just listen and then give it
Yeah.
to them.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't do that in team meetings, I did that in one-on-ones,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
and one-on-ones were always, basically come to me and complain.
Yeah.
That was really it, like, because I felt like everything that we needed to do was handled in some other context, and the one-on-one was just, "What's having you not be happy today?" And I figured my job was to make them happy, and
Yeah.
so
Well, that's what
and that
creates loyalty in staff,
yeah,
that they know that their manager cares about them and
yeah,
their career
and
growth.
yeah, and that worked out really, really well, I got to hear what was going on, I got to solve their problems, I got to hear about, like, the more they trust you, the more they'll say, like, "I'm super frustrated because my kid sucks at math, and
Yeah.
it's bugging me," right? And, I can go, and I did, by the way, like, "Hey, both of my kids in middle school, they completely fell off the math wagon,
Yeah.
and we got them a tutor. And there's this
Mhm.
really inexpensive tutoring place over here that my kids loved. Like, that those tutors have skills I don't have, right?
Yeah.
And so the guy just didn't care what the complaint was. I was like, if I've got a way to solve the problem, great. Here, go to town, and
Yeah.
that
One
worked
one
out.
of
That worked out really well.
I think a novice mistake for most leaders is that they think they need to have all the answers. They think that now I'm the leader, I'm
Right.
just supposed to know everything. In my old company, I said, "I don't know," or "I don't understand," more than everyone else in the company combined. And it's not because I'm such a dummy. It's because I had the confidence to say, "Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's find out."
Right.
And to recognize that the people that you manage, they probably have all the answers, or at least 90% of them. We came up with a customer service training manual at Cadorable. We did it over about 6 months in 15-minute increments. And it started with a couple we had a customer service training meeting every day after lunch. And it didn't start with me just writing a customer service training manual. It started with having all the office people in a room. And for 2 days, 15 minutes each day, we brainstormed what's everything that ever goes wrong. Everything from, we shipped a package and UPS lost it, to, we made a mistake, we lost the order, billing, billing mistakes, whatever it is, just everything that could go wrong. And we made a list. There were about 70 things of just things that go wrong. And then just one at a time, one or two per 15-minute meeting over the next 6 months. We just said, okay, UPS lost the package. It's not our fault. What do we do? And everybody would say, and there were 5 people in this meeting. I got 3 different answers. And then just together we'd say, which one of these do you guys think is best? And we're like, oh, it was definitely Anna's answer. Like, that's the best thing. I'm like, all right, great. That's what we're doing from now on every time. We're doing what Anna said because that just makes the most sense. And we did this for all of these. Um, I almost never said, like, "Oh, yeah, this is the way we have to handle it." It was all their ideas. They all knew it.
Right,
I just
right,
brought them together. And at the end of this, everybody was so good at their jobs. And they just felt so empowered because they just knew what the right thing was. They knew what the right thing to do was. They weren't just winging it.
right.
And our customers were better served. They had more autonomy. They had more job satisfaction because they just knew they were great at what they did. And I didn't have to do anything other than lead the meeting.
Yeah, yeah. It's the same thing in the software world. I One of my philosophical perspectives is I don't want to come across as the smartest guy in the room. Um, and I've got a team of software engineers. It's not my job to be the smartest software developer, really. It's to make them all super successful. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, I tried very hard. Like, oftentimes I had an idea, but I didn't know if it was I definitely didn't know if it was the best idea. So I'm like, I'm going to wait till the end to say anything. And if I recognize along the way that my idea is stupid, I'm not going to say anything at all, you
yeah.
know?
Well,
um,
so you were probably promoted to a certain level because you were the smartest guy in the room. But once you're the manager, if you see it as your job to be the smartest guy in the room who always has the answers, you will destroy the productivity of your team because they will turn off their minds. They will
right,
stop taking risks. They're going to stop making decisions. And they're just going to ask you because if they give you an idea, you're just going to tell them what to do anyway. And it makes your job so much harder. It dramatically erodes their own job satisfaction. And it just makes you this top of the pyramid, this bottleneck where nothing could happen without you giving your final say so. It destroys the productivity of a team. It's the illusion of leadership.
right, right. Actually, the first guy that promoted me to run a software team, I actually asked him why later, and he actually said there was two reasons. One of them was I had some technical acumen.
Yeah.
Um, but the second reason was because I was already working on helping make other people successful.
Mm.
So we were a really small startup, but I was already talking to other people in the company to understand um, where they had friction and how initially me, because I was the whole tech team to begin with, because you know that's kind of how it started off. It
Yeah.
was he knew that I was trying to help other people already, and he figured that was a good um, indicator that when I hired a team, I'd be trying to help them all individually also be successful.
Yeah.
And then the for me, the biggest lesson was that um the first four software engineers that I hired were um they were all computer science majors out of Berkeley.
Mhm.
They could code circles around me. Like the first guy that I hired was he I can't even I still to this day I'm like, how the hell did I manage to hire that guy?
Yeah.
He was uh valedictorian of his class.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
At
super smart
Berkeley.
guy,
Yeah.
double major, computer science and business, and he got a full academic scholarship to Berkeley.
Yeah.
Like, super bright guy. He's been coding since he was, like, 12. And then I hired 3 of his friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, um, because and they were all really, really good. They were good at coding. They were good communicators. I knew they could all code circles around me, and I'm like, "My job is just to make sure that they're happy and that they know what to do and why we're doing it,
Yeah.
and, get the friction out of the way and let them run as fast as they want to."
Yeah.
And that worked out really, really well 'cause, the "I'm the smartest guy in the room" disappeared immediately when I hired the first guy, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and just back to our the beginning of our conversation about partners and teams and stuff like that. Another um, misconception about being the leader is that you are supposed to not just know everything, but you're supposed to be good at everything. You're supposed to know how to do everything. But nobody's great at everything. My old company, Cadorable, I have very low social needs. I was very happy to have lunch alone at my desk and all that stuff. I just loved the work and, I'd have meetings with people. I love meetings. But I did not need the company celebrations and company offsites, but our staff did. So, what did I do? I listened. I recognized that they do need to go for drinks after work or bowling or have a party, to celebrate, someone's birthday or something like that. And I just knew I wasn't the right person to plan it. Like it wouldn't be a great party if I was in charge of
Right,
planning it.
right. Yeah.
So I found someone who loves parties, and is a little bit of a busybody and knows everybody's birthday and all that stuff. But I said, "You are in charge of all these celebrations." And I gave her a budget and I told her to make a list of everyone's work anniversary and their birthday and to make sure that we had every other week we would have all company lunches and followed by all hands meeting. And just make sure there's cake, make sure there's ice cream, make sure there's a catered meal and tell me whose birthday it is. And, I again, I'm not a super social person. I'd come 20 minutes late, but I'd come in time for the cake and ice cream and to sing happy birthday. And then we'd have the company meeting and everyone loved it. And they didn't need
Yeah.
me to be there for the first 20 minutes of, kibitzing. It was enough that I knew that they need it and I gave it to them and I supported
Yeah.
them.
Yep.
And, yeah, that was, I remember at every meeting, we'd celebrate our birthdays and, anniversaries. I'd tell them the company news, tell them what was going on, and then I'd say, "Finish enjoying your cake, take a 5-minute break, get back to work." And then I'd leave. So I didn't mean I let other people do them.
Nice. Very good. Um, what what was it that got you to make the transition to leadership coaching? Like, aside from the walk, like, what's the
Yeah,
origin what's the kinda what built up to that
yeah.
to
So,
because
yeah, it's another important part of the story. So, we started this business, children's accessories. And, it took off. And again, I joined EO and it taught me all this stuff about entrepreneurship and leadership and being an inspiring manager, all these things that I'm sharing with you today. I did not come up with any of these things myself. I'm pretty smart, but I'm not that smart. And, after a couple decades, the company was pretty highly optimized. I was working 2 hours a day from home and I'd come
nice.
into the office once a week for face-to-face meetings. Um, if you had asked me 25 years ago, am I passionate about Cadorable? I would have told you yes. But if you'd asked me, does selling fun, practical, unique children's accessories make my heart sing? I'd say, like, no, not really. I mean, it was the meetings, it was the people that really lit me up. And great meetings, like that's where problems are solved. That's where I get to help people accomplish their goals. It's where they come in frustrated and confused and they leave with clarity and inspiration. And I design my whole work life around meetings. I mentioned like our daily huddle, daily customer service, training meeting, weekly sales training meeting, weekly management accountability meeting, quarterly strategic planning meeting. We tapped out at 28 employees. I had 2-hour quarterly reviews with every single employee because this is what I love to do. But, you know, when you're an entrepreneur, when you have this, drive to, create and to, have an impact, it wasn't enough just to have all this leisure and an operationally excellent company. And that's when I took that walk and discovered
Nice.
that it was time for me to become a coach. And, the best decision I ever made. If it was merely work that I was born for, and it is, it would be a bright spot. Because what I do is I help people get clarity on, who they are, where they're going, how to get there, all in service of a life and business that feels more effortless, more meaningful, more joyous. Especially that first year, there were 50 times where I would be on a call for a client, having a conversation maybe for the third or fourth time that week about alignment with purpose and values, about, having a vision for the future that magnetically pulls you towards it, about just solving problems, relationships, removing obstacles, both the ones in front of you and also, the ones inside of you, self-limiting beliefs,
Mhm.
stuff like that. And I would think in the back of my mind, "Oh, Jonathan, there's that part of your life that's out of alignment. You should do something about that." And I did, like 50 times. And I worked out all of my misalignments, all my fears, all my compulsions, just they're all gone. And I've had this
Nice.
elevated feeling of well-being ever since. It's been really remarkable.
Excellent. Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You gotta work on yourself first.
Oh,
It's
yeah, you can't grow your company unless you grow yourself first.
yeah, yeah, it's the safety briefing on the airplane. You gotta put your own your own, oxygen mask on before you try
It's
to give it to somebody else.
it's so much more than that. So many of the problems that we have in leaders, we engineer those problems. I'll tell you a story. So one of my favorite clients, so anytime I tell you a client story, I always have permission to share. Otherwise, everything I do with
Huh?
clients is confidential. But she was a serial entrepreneur. She was about 50 years old. She was on her third company. She had reached a certain level of success. She had about 15 employees. And this woman, she had a tremendous work ethic. She would work every day, 15, 16-hour days. And her company was a prison. Nothing could happen in her company
Mm.
without
Yep,
her
yep,
direct micro involvement. And when we started working together, she thought she wanted a traditional business coach, and that's what I gave her. We talked about meeting structure, and she already had great culture and core values, stuff like that. And she was a tremendous student. Anything that we talked about, she would always immediately implement it, and she would make progress. But it always felt like it was one step forward, one step back. She would do whatever we talked about, and she'd solve that problem. But then there would just be something. It was like a hydra. There'd be something else that would take its place.
yep, yep.
After a couple months of this, I'm like, all right, I think I know what's going on. Um, you have something called a competing commitment. Our conscious minds are like an ant riding the elephant of our subconscious. The ant cannot control the elephant through force of will. It's impossible. The most it could do is say, hey, look over there, and hope that the big dummy just, turns his head and sees something and wants to go in that direction. So I asked her, what's her conscious commitment? What are you committed to? And emphatically, she says, I am committed to my company scaling without my micro involvement. Like, excellent. Great goal. What are all the things you do that are at cross purposes with that? What do you do to sabotage yourself? And we made a list
Mm.
of 8, 10, 15 things. She hires, this is a great phrase, was her phrase. She hires birds with broken wings. People who she just knows, the little bit of nurturing could be awesome. She doesn't pay a market wage, so she can't attract, high performers. When someone comes to her with something and it's not perfect, she just takes it over and does it herself because that's faster than explaining to them how to do it. She did all this stuff. Okay, someone who does all those things, what else might they be committed to? Something self-protective, something subconscious that makes all those behaviors seem perfectly reasonable. And in her case, she realized that she was committed to not depending on anyone. Okay, makes sense. If you're not going to depend on anyone, you won't hire anyone you could depend on. Next step, okay, you're not you're committed to not depending on anybody. What's the belief? That's the big assumption about how the world works that fuels that competing commitment, that makes it a matter of life and death. And she realized that she was committed to not depending on anyone because if she did, they would betray her, let her down, and she'd feel terrible about herself. Now, when she was 8 years old, that was a perfectly accurate worldview. That's exactly the family that she grew up in. But as a successful 50-year-old entrepreneur, it was absurd. But it's almost never enough just to say, Bill, that's stupid. Stop thinking that way. The elephant doesn't work that way. So what do? You come up with low risk tests of the validity of the belief. And in her case, it was depend on people for things that just don't matter. Ask your husband to take out the garbage. See what happens. Ask your assistant to order you lunch without telling you what it is. See what happens. It's an experiment. It's not a life hack. It's an experiment. Get the elephant to turn its head. And I'm delighted to say that this woman who was working 15, 16-hour days, 2 months later, she took a 3-month sabbatical. She biked across Canada
Nice.
and her company grew while she was gone.
Oh,
That's
excellent.
the power of these self-limiting beliefs. They cause us to sabotage ourselves, to work against ourselves. It's like having one foot on the gas, one foot on the brake. You can't grow your company unless you first grow yourself.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, that's, I'm a I've been fascinated by personal growth and growing myself since my early 20s
Yeah.
when I, ran across some and maybe even before then. Um, And yeah, it's always, that's the starting point is hack my own head first and then figure out how to hack other people's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's listening who says, I really wish I could shift my mindset and start, you know, being more of, being someone who can grow myself so they could grow my department, grow my company. Um, it just starts with this. Life is a curriculum perfectly designed to work out to work out your purpose. Life is a curriculum perfectly designed to work out your purpose. Just look at whatever's happening. Anything happening in your life that you just don't think is awesome, and ask, who is it that I need to be? What is it that I need to learn? What's the action I need to take? And then go do that. And one thing at a time, you'll become the person you were born to be.
I like that. That's good. That's the growth mindset. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. You
This
don't
has been
need
super
to
cool.
like make a list of all the things you need to learn. Just look at what's happening in your life. Life will teach you.
Right, right.
And it'll keep teaching you until you learn it.
Yeah, I am constantly learning new things. This is me learning a new thing. I have this regenerative farm project.
Yeah.
Everything like how to do construction, how to do trenching,
Yeah.
cement work. We built a metal building. We've done thousands of feet of fencing, um, forestry management.
Yeah.
It's like I'm all this stuff completely different from my whole software world. So I like the contrast.
Life
You
will
know.
teach you what you need to know. This literally happened to me 2 weeks ago. So I was teaching uh I was delivering a workshop on how to find your zone of genius. Your zone of genius is the work that doesn't feel like work. It creates effortless abundance for yourself and those around you. And the big distinction between genius and excellence, like you might be equally good at these things, you might love them equally, but it's a personal example. I'm really good at data analysis, Bill, but if I look at an Excel spreadsheet for 4 hours, my eyes glaze over. But
Oh
what we're
God,
doing right
yeah.
now, like I can do this all day, back to back to back to back. So it was for a global YPO chapter. YPO is another one of these big organizations of business leaders. And they had some people in Australia, they had some people in North America. So I did the workshop twice, once at 11 a.m., once at 7:30 p.m. And I do the 11 o'clock presentation, and it's slides and stories and introduce the concept. But, by its nature, it's a little superficial because, it's one to many and, it's just not the right, um, format to go really deep. And, I do the best job I know how to do. And I literally had to take a nap afterwards. Like
Oh yeah,
it was
totally.
just exhausting.
Yep.
And then at 7:30 we do Australia. It's a much far fewer members there. And I knew there were only 8 people who were signed up, but there was some sort of technical snafu. Like no one got the calendar invite and only one person actually showed up.
Oh,
And as soon as it became clear what had happened, his name was Michael. I said, Michael, like I have this whole presentation plan for you and we could do it. But I think we'd both have a lot more fun if I just gave you a live one-on-one coaching session on this material. And that's what
right,
we
right.
did. And I tell people I'm in the personal transformation business. I just I help people have lives and businesses that feel more effortless, more meaningful, more joyous, to discover what they're born for. And that's exactly what happened during this hour with Michael. And then afterwards, it was 9:30 at night. I felt great. I wasn't tired at all because that's the difference between excellence and genius. And then the next morning, I was thinking about this and like, I was literally teaching about zone of genius and I was doing it in my zone of excellence. My genius is one-on-one. My genius is personal transformation. How could I get on stage? Because there's business reasons. There's a compelling interest in me being on stage and sharing this stuff. How could I get on stage and do a one-on-one transformation? And when I came up with the idea is, I'll start with my opening story. Like I know that in the model, I know that backwards and forwards. We just did that a little bit with competing commitments and self-limiting
Mhm.
beliefs. You don't have to prepare for that at all. And then before, I'll just ask for a couple, ask the organizer for a couple volunteers, people who want to go really deep. And I'll have a 20-minute call with them to start the exercise, not to finish it, but just get enough so I know that they're willing to deeply, vulnerably share. And then I'll bring them up live on the hot seat and we'll do a transformation in front of everybody. And for me, it's one-on-one transformation, my genius, what energizes me. For everyone else, they get to witness magic happen.
Right,
It's
right.
just such a better model. So this happens every all the time. I did this for a living, and this happened to me 2 weeks ago.
Beautiful. Very cool. It's awesome that you like self-awareness
Yeah.
there of seeing, what you should be doing, what you could be doing. I love it. Thank you.
I
That's a
don't
great
know if I
story.
would have noticed if it didn't happen back to back. You know,
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes you
if I
need that proximity. Yeah.
yeah, if I just did the 2 workshops and it was just tiring, I would have thought, well, that's what presentations are like, you know? But, yeah, the contrast, immediately we think like, "Oh, what am I doing? I gotta find a way to do" especially if I'm doing a zone of genius workshop, I should try to figure out how to do it within my zone of genius.
Yeah, yeah. That's the trick is definitely it's back to, you got to hack your own head first
Yeah.
and then hack everybody else's. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. That's very cool. Um this has been super fun. Thank you. I appreciate your time.